Okay, this is a movie about picture frame, and I've shown picture frame in other movies, but never quite done a movie on picture frame. So I thought this would be a good time. I was looking at John's post here, and I thought this was great. Appreciate you passing this along, and so this got me thinking about the grid and how it interacts with objects, and I've always kind of wanted a grid over the object function, so I kind of dug around. Anyway, so here's a video about picture frame. Picture frame lives in the view menu right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pick the one that I'm going to be working with, which is actually a screen capture, and I just picked this one because it has black in it, and as far as that goes, we can do what John was showing and some other stuff too. So picture frame, and actually I kind of drew that without even talking about it. Picture frame, once you pick the function, I always start in the lower left corner, and you can see that you can draw this on any angle, or you can type in the length of the picture frame, and the next click would be the lower right corner. And the cool thing is that it is an object. So you can select it, you can put it on a layer, you can turn that layer off. If you hit restore viewports, it doesn't get rid of it like it does background bitmap. And so I really quite like that functionality of it. As someone said in one of the posts too, you can even trim and split it and so on. So you can even do something like this and say you get split by you, and we can throw that away. And well, that really kind of makes you go tilt when you have a grid going through a grid on a grid. So anyway, let's go ahead and hit undo on that. Okay, now, so having done that, the point that John made in his was if you go to edit object properties, or if you have default settings in Matrix, it's Control T as in Tango, and that'll bring up the properties box. Now on the here it is as an object. If you go down to the Material tab, you'll notice that there's a transparency box. Okay, and if you click the transparency box on, it prompts you for an image to get the transparency from, which of course I would pick the same, and then the same object, and then based on an intensity of 100, then what's going on here is that the black goes transparent. Okay, and so if we click this, and let's go 50, enter. I don't really see any difference with that, but anyway, that's showing the transparency through, based on luminance, how much it's transparent. In other words, black is purely transparent, and other colors go less transparent. Now, the one thing that you can also do if you have a lot of white in your image, is you can come up here to this transparency though and go 50 there, in which case you knock the whole image overall down transparent. So based on that, if you have an object that is, I keep picking the wrong, there we go. If you have an object that is all white, no real black at all, and come over here to transparency, you can at least get it so you can see through that thing somewhat, and still draw and see the grid. Okay, so that's the overall transparency. Okay, now let's go back to this one again. Okay, a little bit more about picture frame objects. Let's move this out of the way. When you select the picture frame, I sometimes want to move them up and down. As a matter of fact, it's really hard to even pick a picture frame object in another viewport. You can see I'm clicking like crazy here. And if I swipe it, if you want to move it in this viewport, if you go right near the edge, then you can actually move it. Okay? Otherwise, what I do is in this viewport, using Control, which is elevator mode, then if I hold down Control and move in this viewport, it actually goes up and down, or 90 degrees to what it's doing in the other viewports. So you can move it like so. So if we have another object in the scene to interact with, like so, and let's say we shade it in this viewport, and you want this in front of or behind the object, I just hold down Control, and here I can move it so it's down beneath the object, or using Control once again, I can move it up above the object. And of course, if you have the transparency on, then you could see through it and put that wherever you want. So now if we go rotate with copy on, the other neat thing about these objects are that they render. So if we go over to render and just hit, I'm just gonna, without doing anything, I'm just gonna go ahead and hit render here. And so there you can see that those objects render right in the scene. And so a lot of times it's neat to, if you do a design based on a sketch, you put the sketch out there and go ahead and render it as a picture frame. Now this is a fairly common phenomenon too, where the viewport is getting shaded in another mode besides what we were in. And to fix that, you select these and go to object properties, which again I use Control T, and then if you just go to basic, it comes back because the shader, the material was changed to a plugin, and so it was getting messed up, and now it's back to a basic shader and it comes back. So that's just a byproduct. If you pick another shade mode like one of these, then even if you go back, you're in trouble. So you select it, Control T or edit object properties, and basic, and you're back. Okay, now let's talk more about getting the grid. What I was kind of hoping in Rhino that they would have is under options, here's the grid commands, and there's no way to force the grid over or under an object. However, under appearance right here, and then under advanced, if we go advanced settings, what we have here is we have all the different shade modes that we've written for matrix. Okay, so if you come over here and click here, these are all correspond to these. So one of the ones I use all the time is shaded. So if we come over to shaded, you'll notice that there's a grid option for it. Okay, and at that point we can come over here to advanced grid settings, and this says show grid behind all objects. Alright, so by default you can see that the grid is always behind this object, even though it's going right through the middle. Alright, so if we go back to this, we can say show the grid on top of objects. Now don't be confused though. I mean, there it is. It's going here. If I move this down, you can see it's truly above it, and it shows whatever is there. There is no way that I know of to have it go over the object all the time. Like in a planar viewport, I don't know of a way to do that like all the time. So like here, you won't get it over it. Now of course the one thing that you can do is you can move the C-plane. Here you can see that our C-plane is at 0, and what you could do is if well, I usually type this, but let's go back. C-plane's under view, and you can do elevation. So it's right here. You can either go set C-plane elevation, or you can go C-plane. Just type it, C-plane, and it's right here, elevation. Distance to move the C-plane. Well, if I move it to 5, or just type 5, enter. Now the C-plane is actually above the object. Okay, so without moving the object, now if I draw, okay, then I'm actually drawing up here. Okay, but I am above the object. Now the neat thing about this is then you can just go C-plane back here and go previous. And now it's back, and you can tell because if I draw here again, you can see that down here it's flat again. And anyway, so you can play around with the C-plane too, but that's kind of a tangent. But with the shade mode set so that the C-plane goes, or the grid goes over an object, well then we can simply come over here and holding down control I can move this beneath there, and now I get the grid over my object and it still interacts with the other objects. So hopefully this isn't too much rambling. Now the other neat thing, the last thing that you can do is mess around with the order that locked objects are shaded in. For instance, if we go to options under shaded, okay, and go to objects, we can say locked objects, draw objects behind all others. So this is typically off. So if we select this and say OK, now if we come over and we lock this layer, and now I just move this viewport, oh shoot, I got these both on the same layer. Let's do this. Let's put this one on red. Okay, so now let's lock this, and then we have to just move the viewport. You can see that this is getting drawn behind the other object all the time, no matter what. So even if this object is way down here, it still is in front of this object. At which point, if I unlock this and move it, then it comes back. So that's just kind of some fun stuff you can do to get the grids and the objects to go in front of and behind each other. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this back off. You can really mess everything up if you get too crazy in here. But by default, show grid behind all other objects is on. And there's the transparency and how to move these back and forth above. You know, there it is going through the object. So there's some more stuff about picture frame.